this book you had a publisher for.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the publishing, self-publishing, like
Mm.
how you went that route? Are you going to self-publish in the future?
Mhm.
What's kind of your thoughts and plans about that?
Yeah. So book one is released with a small press, and how it's transpired is I'm not going to be continuing the series with them, so I'm self-publishing books two and three. Because to be honest, when I started writing this, I kind of only had in my head the idea of traditional publication, and I just thought I don't really know what I'm doing here, so I feel like that's the best route. Um, I went down the route of trying to find an agent, um, but I was simultaneously querying some small presses, and hence how I found the small press that published it. Um, and I think there are pros and cons to both sides ultimately. Self-publishing certainly seems to have just vastly like boomed over the past few years. Even since like this came out in 2022, even since then it just seems to be just growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an exciting opportunity if you've got kind of the resources. I've got a lot of people who have done self-publishing, so now I feel like compared to 3 and a bit years ago when I got this book picked up, I've now know a lot more people that have self-published and can kind of talk to them about how do you do this, like where do I even start. So I feel a lot more prepared than I did back then. So I think it just kind of obviously I was thrilled to be picked up by a small press. It's a shame it hasn't worked out. And that's just kind of the nature of traditional publishing. Like, it's not just because you get picked up by a publishing house doesn't mean it's going to be like a massive success.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me is disappointed about the rest of the series not coming out with the same publisher, but also at the same time, I feel quite excited about taking back control of it and having just the full creative license to do whatever I want with it. And I'm currently editing book two. I've had like the developmental edits back. It's been to beta readers, so it's going to go to a copy editor once I'm done implementing all the changes. And then I'm aiming for like an autumn release. Um, but yeah, I think I'll probably end up being a hybrid author ultimately, because like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, that standalone book that I'm querying, I'm looking for an agent or even another small press. But if that doesn't work out, I'll self-publish that book as well. So it feels like it just opens up another door ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can try for traditional publishing, and if it doesn't work out, self-publishing is always going to be there as an option.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, movies and TVs and book, like there's a lot of all that kind of the same stuff of like movies and TV shows get started and canceled all the time. Like this
Mm-hmm.
stuff happens and
Yeah.
whatever happens with it. Um, but I think I agree with you that like it's nice that self-publishing has become an easier option,
Mm.
because I think before one, I think it used to be a little harder to do.
Yeah.
And I think when I talked to a guy a few episodes ago, Caden Love, I don't know if you saw that one.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about he thought there there's used to be a bit of a stigma about self-publishing,
Mm.
like you self-publish if you weren't good enough to
Yeah.
do traditional or something. And he's like, he thought that stigma was leaving, and I agree too. I've read some great self-published books, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's becoming so viable for people that, like you said, it's like you can kind of go either way with it, you
Mm.
know. Is
Yeah.
there kind of a, and if you can't get into this, that's fine, but with the one being published by a small press and then you
Mm-hmm.
self-publishing, how to kind of, is there anything weird with the rights there? Or like how does that kind of work?
So yeah, it's not ideal. Basically, the rights are going to revert back to me for book one
Hmm.
once the print run has finished. Um, so for now, it just kind of stays as is, like that they've got the rights for book one at the moment. But at some point in the future, hopefully, if sales are good enough, touch wood, then I'll get the rights back and I'll be able to re-release book one.
Hmm.
But it'll just, to me, it doesn't kind of impact upon what's going to happen with the series. I'm gonna still publish the same books that I would have published anyway. You can still get book one and books two and three as and when I do release them. So it's a bit unconventional, but I think that I don't foresee there being any issues.
Hmm.
Hopefully, and I'm taking it as a bit of a learning curve, and in terms of sometimes things just don't work out how you expect them to. Just kind of roll in with the punch, and
Hmm.
I'm going to release books 2 and 3. There's because ultimately I want to complete this series no matter what, like no matter whether it does well or not.
Hmm.
I just want the books to be out there and to say, yeah, that's done. I wouldn't want to leave it just book one. That would feel weird, and just like that's well, it's never going to sell, is it? Because if there's no rest of the series, I've got a series that I started years and years ago that I've not finished. Not just Game of Thrones, there's other stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's not someone's not going to pick it up and read it. Whereas actually, I've now I can set the release date, so I've got more control of that now. So that's the aim for the next couple of years, is to finish this series alongside
Hmm.
whatever else happens with the other books that I'm writing.
Yeah. Is there anything? There's one other thing I want to get to about series and finishing them, but is there anything from doing the traditional publish route that you've learned that you think will help in the self-publishing realm? Like, is there some crossover there?
Mm, definitely the whole marketing stuff. Because going into it, whether you're traditionally or self-published, just the level of marketing knowledge that you need is astounding. Um, and so I've been learning a lot over the past couple of years since the book came out, watching other authors, getting advice and just kind of taking notes, and also taking notes on what works for myself. Because sometimes I'll do something on Instagram or something that gets is really popular. And I don't understand why, but can I work it out and try and like replicate that? But it's just not a perfect process at all, because someone else could replicate it and they don't get the same results. Because I've done that on TikTok. I've seen something that's popular and gone, I'll do that, and
Hmm.
it's crickets, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a challenge, I would say, that just marketing in general, because
Hmm.
again, we authors tend to be introverted people, and having to put yourself out there and say like, please buy my book, and be a salesperson essentially. And so I did not sign up for this. I just want to write the book and
Yeah.
put it out there and it to magically sell itself. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, so that's definitely something to be aware of. Whatever route you go into, you are gonna have to actively market your book.
Yeah. And just to echo what you said, because I've been doing the social media thing for a while now, I've had this YouTube channel for like 3.5 years.
Mhm.
I will totally echo what you said that sometimes things just pop off and sometimes they don't. And I have yet to find the reason. Like, I. I have tried all sorts of things. I've tried like doing really high edits on it, not editing stuff, just
Mhm.
shorts, and I don't know. So like one will just all of a sudden take off, and I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
there goes. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's honestly, it seems to be the ones that you don't put all the effort into. Like I've got a video at the moment that's like on Instagram that just keeps getting likes and stuff. It's got, like, I don't know, 15,000 views, which is way more than I usually get. And like I
Hmm.
put minimal effort into this. I literally had about 5 minutes before I was about to do some work, and recorded this thing, and just I don't know. Usually I'm like planning. I'm like, oh, what can I do? I'm trying to script stuff, and then something that I literally put very little effort into.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. For my day job, I'm a video editor, and so I some of my videos, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a lot of effort into this, and I
Mhm.
edit it and edit it. It takes me a few weeks, and like just edit it as much as I possibly can.
Mhm.
Nobody watches it.
Yeah.
And then I have one video that like it's literally just a screenshot of me doing like I'm doing something on the computer and I'm just like
Yeah.
down in the little corner of it
Mhm.
and it just continues to get like constant views all the time and it's been out for like 2 years. Like it just
Mhm.
keeps going. I'm like, "Okay. Well, I don't I aim for the middle of the road now. Like I don't
Mhm.
do too much, but I don't do too little. I just right in the
Yeah.
middle."
Yeah, I think that's a good way to view it, isn't it? Because ultimately, if you end up putting too much effort into something, it's taken away from your writing time. It can become
Hmm.
incredibly draining as well, and also disheartening if you don't get the response that you want. And that's generally the case because it is so unpredictable, isn't it? You can put a huge amount of effort in, like I said, get very little engagement from it. So actually, finding that balance of just it doesn't have to be super edited and polished actually, because that's not guaranteed to get you any engagement. Work
Hmm.
out, what can you reasonably put into this, like in terms of your time and energy, and just stick with that. Don't let social media take over, because it can very easily, you can
Hmm.
kind of, become very aware of engagement and trying to push it up, and that sucks the enjoyment out of being a writer in some ways, because it's almost like the opposite of a creative process. It's very draining to the
Hmm.
creative process.
I think people like what I would tell them is be very consistent, and
Mm.
then when you get that new reader, when you get that new sale of the book, just really be happy with that, because you really can't, just. But I think the only thing you can count on is being consistent with the marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.